Good morning, friends. Today we are going to start the textual analysis of Edward W. Said's introduction to his groundbreaking book, Orientalism, that was published in 1977. And today we are fortunate that one of our students, one of your batch fellows, Ahmed Hassan, is going to read the text with me so that we can make sense of what Said is really trying to point out. Okay. So, before Ahmed Hassan starts reading, let me sketch the background to this particular text, Orientalism. You know, Edward Said was an intellectual with a checkered background. He was an Arab Christian who became a US citizen through his father. Edward Said had an almost nomadic life. Born in Palestine, living for a time in Cairo, and then migrating to the United States. He was basically a kind of an intellectual globetrotter who has taught and lectured all over the globe. So in Orientalism, he is actually trying to look back at the encounter between the West and the East. If you read the preface to the Silver Jubilee edition of Orientalism, you'll get to know certain things. Now, as Said has himself pointed out, this is a book about representation. And because this is a book about representation, obviously, this is a book about perception. How I perceive you, how a particular land or people may have been perceived. Should be determined by the perspective, the outlook, and the subject position of the perceiver. I have already told you about Europe considering herself as the self and the rest of the world as the other. So the rest of the world must have been, from the perspective of the Europeans, not only different to, but also inferior to the European self. And as a result, you know, there have been certain miscommunications and misunderstandings, certain prejudices and typecasting. Now, if you read the text of Orientalism, you will see that the text actually begins with two epigraphs. that are significant for understanding or making sense of the whole text. But what I am trying to point out is how this couple of epigraphs, these two epigraphs, actually encapsulate not only the whole book, but also the introduction to the text that we are going to read. So before Ahmed Hassan reads the text, he will have to read the epigraphs. One is by Benjamin Disraeli, who had written a novel in the 19th century called Tancred. Disraeli was at one time the Prime Minister of England. And then another epigraph has been taken from Karl Marx. We all know that Karl Marx is supposed to be a champion of the downtrodden, the poor, the marginalized. Even Karl Marx could not be absolutely free from the prejudices that were ingrained into the European minds. Ahmed Hassan, have you found out the epigraphs?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Then read them one by one.
Okay, sir. The first one is by Karl Marx. They cannot represent themselves. They must be represented.
Now here you have to understand. They here means the Easterners, the Orientals. They cannot represent themselves. They have to be represented. Now who decides, who says this? Karl Marx. Now doesn't Karl Marx know that the East could boast of ancient civilizations? Be it China, be it Egypt, be it India, be it Mesopotamia. You think even about the Latin Americas, the Incas, the Mayas, the Aztecs. These were highly efficient, highly organized, and highly developed civilizations. We all know that one of the most important characteristics of human beings is that human beings can express themselves. They can think, they can express themselves. They have developed verbal and written communication through language. If we even leave aside his shared animal faculty of making sense of his own or her own views, opinions, experiences, and moods through physical gestures, we can at least tell you this much. We can actually point out this much, that man has language, yes or no? Yes or no? Man has language, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
man actually thinks and expresses through and with the help of language, yes or no? If I tell you to think about something without language, will you be able to do it? No. Because the concepts, the experiences, even the sensory data that we receive from all sorts of sources throughout the day, throughout the year, throughout our life, is actually mediated through language. We all know that. So if Karl Marx says they cannot represent themselves, they have to be represented. What is he doing? In the grip of the equally devastating, counterproductive European prejudice, Karl Marx, the so-called champion of the downtrodden, even he seems to think that the Orientals cannot represent themselves. They are inferior. They don't have the power to represent themselves. And who will represent them? The Europeans. They have to be represented by us. So who becomes the self-styled representative and representative? The Europeans. I have, during my last lecture, told you about Friday and his experience with Robinson Crusoe. Yes, Robinson Crusoe saved his life. No doubt about it. But you know, one thing you have to understand. If you read Robinson Crusoe, the text, you will see that Robinson Crusoe had once befriended and been served by a boy, Zuri, whom later on he sold. So if chance or opportunity had presented itself in a different way, there is every possibility that Robinson Crusoe could have sold Friday as well. The one-time only companion, disciple, and devoted servant. So if you take away from the Orientals their capacity to represent themselves, and if you take on you the divine mission of representation, that you will represent them, obviously you are actually being hypocritical. You are being very devious. The West actually exercised its discursive power by taking on the role of representing the East. Have you understood? Have you understood? Tell me.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So you have to understand this. Why did Edward Said take up this particular epigraph from Karl Marx? He wanted to show us how this game and politics of representation created and perpetuated an unequal power dynamics and hierarchy, where the Europeans, the Westerners, the West had all the advantages because they were the representing forces. And the others, the rest, the Easterners became the represented, the categorized, and obviously the marginalized peoples. The next epigraph. Yes, Ahmed Hassan.
Yes, sir. The next one is by Benjamin Disraeli. That is, the East is a carrier.
Okay, the East is a carrier. Now, if the East is a carrier, what is the meaning of the word carrier? What is, yes, tell me. What does the word carrier mean?
A place where
Occupational profession.
One by one. One said, a place, what?
A place of business and trade.
Is it a place? Have you checked it? Another said something. আরেকজন কি যেন বললে? Occupation? Yes, tell me.
Yes, sir, occupation, I said.
Occupation. So the occupation, so East became an occupation. Now occupation can mean two things. Number one, profession. And number two, business. Activities. So the East provided the Westerners both the professional opening and a place or chance to be busy with, to spend your time. Are you getting my point? So, East was supposed to be a land of boundless opportunities. And that was also a discursive construction. It was not basically a true representation of the East. It was mythicized. East was represented in a particular way so as to make the Westerners interested in the East. Are you getting my point? Because, you know, Orientalism as a discourse, Orientalism as a colonial strategy, even a cognitive strategy, became so powerful, so effectual only because of this, that it could draw the attention of the European domestic opinion that will support and aid the colonizing effort, the commercial effort. Have you understood? Yes or no? Okay. So these are the two epigraphs that we have read together. Now come to the introductory part of this book, introduction. And Ahmed Hassan will start discussing it, reading it, and I will discuss. You know, the treatise begins, the introduction begins with a description of Beirut. We all know that the immediate context of this particular book was the Arab-Israeli war and the civil war that raged in the 1970s. He is talking about Beirut. Yes, go on.
Yes, sir. Introduction. On a visit to Beirut during the terrible civil war of 1975 and 1976, a French journalist wrote regretfully of the gutted downtown area that it had once seemed to belong to the Orient of Chateaubriand and Novel.
Wait. So the immediate context was the 1975 civil war. And the downtown area was very much affected, almost demolished by the contending factions. Now think about it. The French journalist said that it pained him to think that these Beirut of Chateaubriand and Narval, two French gentlemen from the bygone era, had lost its splendor. Now Now think about it. Think about it. If you tell us today, after visiting Kolkata, oh, Kolkata, Charnock's town has become so bad today. Be impartial. Will you be truthful? Will you be neutral? No. Because Calcutta was not Charnock's town. It is true that Job Charnock had once done certain things in Kolkata. But it does not mean that that place belongs to Job Charnock. Because there were people living in Kolkata even before Job Charnock. And Job Charnock and the English could not be called the real owners of this place. So Beirut, he is calling the Beirut of Chateaubriand and Narval because once they had visited and stayed in Beirut. Are you getting my point? This is how the Westerners have tried to misappropriate, steal land and even their memories. Are you getting my point? Memories associated with a land, once colonized land. Are you getting my point? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go on.
He was right about the place. Of course, especially so far as a European was concerned, the Orient was almost a European invention and had been
Underline.
since.
The Orient was almost a European invention. I will stop here and I will start my next discussion from this particular sentence. Okay? Because it will actually open up a new vista for discussion. Okay, is there any question? Any question?
Sir, the East is a career. Is this a kind of motivational line for East India Company? It seems so, sir.
Not only East India Company, because East does not only refer to India. You have to understand this. East
Yes,
referred to India, East referred to the other parts of Asia also. You think about China. I am telling you, Bikram, is it Bikram?
Yes, sir.
I am telling you, you read the Ibis trilogy by Amitav Ghosh. Sea of Poppies, River of Smoke, and Flood of Fire. And you will understand how China was being forced to take in opium, knowing it full well that opium was destroying the Chinese youth. Any other question? Any other question? Okay. If there was no other question, Shamim Siddiq, you can actually remove me.
Okay, sir.
Oh, before you do that, Shubhankita, you will